Don't be stupid, said Ron. We're coming, said Hermione. Harry pushed open the door. As the door creaked, low rumbling growls met their ears. All three of the dogs' noses sniffed madly in their direction, even though it couldn't see them. What's at its feet? Hermione whispered. Looks like a harp, said Ron. Snape must have left it there. It must wake up the moment it stops playing, said Harry. Well, here goes nothing. He put Hagrid's flute to his lips and blew. It wasn't really a tune, but from the first note, the beast's eyes began to droop. Harry hardly drew breath. Slowly, the dog's growls ceased. It tottered on its paws and fell to its knees, then slumped to the ground, fast asleep. Here's the dog. It doesn't look very nice. Keep playing, Ron warned Harry as they slipped out of the cloak and crept towards the trap door. They could feel the dog's hot, smelly breath as they approached the giant heads. I think we'll be able to pull the door open, said Ron. Who wants to go first, Hermione? No, I don't. All right. Ron gritted his teeth and stepped carefully over the dog's leg. He bent and then pulled the ring of the trap door, which swung open. Well, what can you see? Hermione said anxiously. Nothing, just black. There's no way of climbing down. We just have to drop. Harry, who was still playing the flute, waved at Ron to get his attention and pointed at himself. You want to go first? Are you sure? Said Ron. I don't know how deep this goes. Give the flute to Hermione so she can keep playing him asleep. Harry handed the flute over. In a few seconds of silence, the dog growled and then twitched, but the moment Hermione began to play, it fell back down into a deep sleep. Harry climbed over it and looked down through the trap door. There was no sign at the bottom. He lowered himself through the hole until he was hanging by his fingertips. Then he looked up at Ron and said, If anything happens to me, don't follow. Go straight to the Owlie and send Hedwig to Dumbledore, okay? Right, said Ron. See you in a moment, I hope. And then Harry let go. Cold, damp air rushed past him as he fell down, 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 and then plump. It was a funny sound, a muffled sort of thump, that he landed on something soft. He sat up and felt around, his eyes not used to gloom. It felt as though he was sitting on some sort of plant. It's okay, he called up. It's a soft landing. You can jump. Ron followed right away. He landed sprawled next to Harry. Ugh, what is this stuff? Were his first words. I don't know, some sort of plant. It's here to break the fall. Come on, Hermione. The distant music stopped. There was a loud bark from the dog, but Hermione had already jumped. She landed on the other side. We must be miles under the school, she said. Luckily, this plant is here, said Ron. Lucky, shrieked Hermione. Look at you both. She leapt up and struggled towards a damp wall. She had to struggle a bit because the moment she landed, the plant had started to twist snake-like tendrils under her ankles. As for Harry and Ron, their legs had already been bound tightly with long creepers without their noticing. Hermione managed to free herself before the plant had got a firm grip of her. Now she watched in horror as the two boys fought to pull the plant off, but the more they strained against it, the tighter and faster the plant wound around them. Stop moving, Hermione ordered them. I know what this is. It's Devil's Snare. Oh, I'm so glad we know what it's called. That's great help, snarled Ron, leaning back, trying to stop the plant curling around his neck. Shut up. I'm trying to remember how to kill it. Well, hurry, I can't breathe, Harry gasped, wrestling with it curled around his chest. Devil's Snare, Devil's Snares. What did Professor Sprout say? It likes the dark and damp. So light a fire, Harry choked. Yes, of course, but there's no wood, Hermione cried, wringing her hands. Have you gone mad? Ron bellowed. Are you a witch or not? All right, said Hermione, and she whipped out her wand and waved it, muttered something, and sent a jet of blue flames that she used on Snape at the plant. In a matter of seconds, the two boys felt its loosening grip and cringed away from it, from the light and warmth. Wriggling and flailing, it unraveled itself from their bodies, and they were able to pull free. Lucky you pay attention in herbology, Hermione, said Harry. Yeah, said Ron, and lucky Harry doesn't lose his head in a crisis. There's no wood, honestly. This way, said Harry, pointing down a stone passageway, which was the only way to go on. Here's a picture of the plants. All they could hear, apart from their footsteps, was the gentle drip of water trickling down the walls. The passageway sloped downwards, and Harry was reminded of Gringotts. With an unpleasant jolt of his heart, he remembered that the dragons said to be guarding the vaults of the wizard banks. If they meant a dragon, a fully grown dragon, Norbert had been bad enough. "Can you hear something?" Ron whispered. Harry listened. A soft rustling and creaking seemed to be coming from up ahead. "Do you think it's a ghost?" "I don't know. It sounds like wings to me." "There's a light ahead. I can see something moving." They reached the end of the passageway and saw before them a brilliantly lit chamber, its ceiling arching high above them. It was full of small, jewel-bright birds, fluttering and tumbling around the room. On the opposite side of the chamber was a heavy wooden door. "Do you think they'll attack us if we cross the room?" said Ron. "Probably," said Harry. "They don't look very vicious, but I suppose if they all swoop down at once, well, nothing for it. I guess we'll run." He took a deep breath, covered his face with his arms, and sprinted across the room. He half expected to feel sharp beaks and claws tearing at him any second, but nothing happened. He reached the door untouched. He pulled the handle, but it was locked. The other two followed him. They tugged and heaved at the door, but it wouldn't bulge, not even when Hermione tried her Alohomora charm. "What now?" said Ron. "These birds, they can't just be here for decoration," said Hermione. They watched the birds soaring overhead, glittering, glittering. "They're not birds," said Harry suddenly. "They're keys, winged keys. Look carefully." "So that must mean—" He looked up around the chamber while the other two squinted at the flock of keys. "Yes, look, broomsticks. We've got to catch the key." "But there's hundreds of them." Ron examined the lock on the door. "We're looking for a big, old-fashioned one, probably silver like the handle." He seized a broomstick and kicked off into the air, soaring in the midst of the cloud of keys. They grabbed and snatched, but the bewitched keys darted and dived so quickly it was almost impossible to catch one. Nothing for nothing, though. Harry was the youngest seeker in a century. He had a knack for spotting things when other people did not. After a minute of weaving about through the whirl of feathers, he noticed a large silver key bent wing, as if it had already been caught and stuffed through the keyhole. "That's the one," he called to the other. "That big one. There. No, there, with the bright blue wings. The feathers are all crumpled in one side." Ron went speeding in the direction that Harry was pointing, crashed into the ceiling, and nearly fell off his broom. "We've got to close in on it," Harry called, not taking his eyes off the key with the damaged wing. "Ron, come from it from above. Hermione, stay below and stop going down. I'll try to catch it. Right. Now." Ron dived, Hermione rocketed upwards, and the key dodged both of them. Harry streaked after it and sped towards the wall. Harry leant forward and with a nasty crunching noise pinned it against the stone with one hand. Ron and Hermione's cheers echoed around the chamber. They landed quickly, and Harry ran to the door, the key struggling in his hand. He rammed it into the lock and turned it. It worked. The moment the lock clicked open, the key took flight again, looking very battered now that it had been caught twice. "Ready?" Harry asked the other two, his hand on the door. They nodded. He pulled the door open. The next chamber was so dark they couldn't see anything at all, but as they stepped into it, light suddenly flooded the room to reveal an astonishing sight. They were standing at the end of a huge chessboard behind a black chessmen, which were all taller than they were, carved from what looked like black stone. Facing them, the way across the chamber were white pieces. Harry, Ron, and Hermione shivered slightly. The towering white chessmen with no faces.